Hey everybody, welcome to the Wise Podcast. My name is Adam McLean. We're going to get you off to our tip this week. We have week 2 with Jay Delp.
Perhaps this is the year you need to either buy your first youth ministry camcorder or buy a new camcorder. And one of the questions that I get all the time is, what kind of camcorder should I buy? In fact, what format should I buy to use in my youth ministry? Let's talk about what formats are and what they aren't. First of all, digital is not a format. A lot of people say, when I ask them what format video are you shooting on, they'll say digital. Digital could be a digital still camera, but it doesn't tell me what kind of medium that you're recording onto. And today, a format could be a physical media, like a mini DV tape, like this, or it could be a file format if you're shooting on a tapeless camcorder that has a disc in it, or a hard drive, or a flash memory card, or some other. So today, one of the things you want to make sure you keep in mind, if you're going to buy a tapeless format, one of those hard drive camcorders, or one of those disc-based camcorders, or a flash memory card, is make sure that you choose your editing program before you buy a camera. Because a lot of times, youth ministers buy a camcorder, and then they find out that it records in a tapeless format which their editing program cannot handle. Namely, AVC HD, Advanced Video Codec High Definition. That's a very difficult format to edit, but it's the new kid on the block when it comes to video formats. I still recommend Mini DV for a lot of people because it's robust, it's higher quality actually than the new format, and it's easy to capture to your computer, and your video editing programs like this format much better than they do some of the tapeless formats. Sure, the tapeless formats are nice for the whole drag and drop thing where you can import 30 minutes of video footage in 5 or 3 or 6 minutes, but the price sometimes is paid in difficulty with being able to edit it. So one of the things you want to look out for again is what format, whether or not to go high definition or standard definition. Probably don't need to go high definition, especially if your ending videos are going to end up mostly on the web, on your blog or Facebook or your emailing. A standard definition is plenty good enough for what most of us are doing in youth ministry. If you're going to be handing the camera to kids, make sure you get a camera that you feel safe with risking that kind of technology in the hands of junior or senior high kids. I've already had 2 camera casualties by doing that, but it was definitely worth the risk. So don't buy a $5,000 camera if you really want to take it out on ski trips and mission trips and service projects and you want to be handing it to kids. Also, there's becoming more popular are these little USB camcorders. They sell for about $129, $159. They compress video right to a format that you can upload directly to YouTube. And it's a great idea. It's just not very high quality video. In fact, the camcorders themselves have USB connectors on it so that they bypass the whole editing process and all the different things that make your videos look even more entertaining. And they're great fun though, and if you have a purpose for that, use those camcorders for purposes where you don't need to edit or produce a high quality master. Very fun camcorders, but for the most part you'll be wanting to invest in a higher quality format like Mini DV or a camcorder that shoots in a format that's compatible with your editing software. So there's a lot of great camcorders out there, whether they're consumer cameras at Best Buy, prosumer camcorders that have a little bit or a lot better quality, or even semi-professional camcorders, like the one Adam is shooting this particular podcast in today. No matter whether this is your first camcorder in years or it's a brand new camcorder you're buying to upgrade your old camcorder, make sure that you're using video in your youth ministry, and the camcorder is going to be a key tool to touching many lives through video in your youth ministry. All the best.
Next up on the show, we want to give you a little bit of update from NYWC. Here's Tic Long.
Hey, Tic here, going to give you a little update on this fall's National Youth Workers Convention. All the planning is going great. We have lined up a lot of our favorites: Starfield, David Crowder, Shane and Shane. We have that fun band that was just in one of our cities last year, New World Sun. So we're adding artists all the time. We have Andy Stanley, Tony Campolo as speakers, Chap Clark, Duffy Robbins, just lots of fantastic speakers all getting excited about sharing with you and encouraging you in your ministry. And wanted to remind you again about 2 different things that we started last year and we're bringing back because they were so successful. And there are those cohort groups, which is kind of a fancy name for just going on this journey together. And we have a veterans cohort for people that have been in ministry for 10 years or more. And we have your first 2 years in ministry cohort. And in both of those, you'll have a curator, kind of like a guide that will go through 4 of those sessions together where you will go with a group of peers. So if you're a veteran, have been in ministry for over 10 years, you're going to wrestle with topics specifically for you. And in the veteran cohorts, there'll be much more time to dialogue and interact. It's not as much content being dumped as it is enough content to get you thinking about how this impacts your ministry, and then lots of dialogue about what's it mean and where do we go. And you'll be with the same group of people over 4 different sessions. I think you'll find it, again, very, very valuable, and you'll make great friendships with people that are in ministry in the same situation you are. And then similarly with the people that are just starting. And then Mark Penner is going to be the curator of that. In fact, Mark Matlock's going to be curator of veterans. Mark Penner is going to be the curator for the rookies and the new people in ministry. And the same thing. Go with other people like you and walk through the content, and with the rookie, a little more time to question, answer, what's this mean? How do we apply that? A little more guidance as you're new in youth ministry that Marv will be providing on all the sessions being presented. So again, those cohorts are really fun, and I think you'll enjoy those. We'll get back to you later with some of the other cool stuff.
Next up on the show, we have Kara Powell. She's one of our authors, and she's got this devotional to share with you.
You know, in my own times with God these days, there's one passage that I just am meditating on, and I've been meditating on it every day. In fact, this morning I was meditating on it, and it's Galatians 5. And I try to move forward from it, but it just still has its arms around my soul and my mind and my heart. And I'm just going to read a little bit of it for you. Paul writes in Galatians 5:1 and following, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. Mark my words, I, Paul, tell you that if you let yourselves be circumcised, Christ will be of no value to you at all." Now, you got to know a little bit about circumcision. Circumcision in the first century was kind of the epitome of law, of behavior, of a real outward sign of your inward obedience to Christ. And here, Paul is saying that if you let yourself be circumcised, then you're really not understanding the full power and meaning of being saved by Jesus and Jesus alone, and Jesus' grace alone. So as I've been thinking about my own life, I grew up in church, not literally, but in many ways I feel like I've grown up in church. And I think in middle school and high school, I equated following Jesus with a bunch of rules, what Dallas Willard calls the gospel of sin management. And for me, following Jesus meant managing my sins and making the right choices when I was partying with my friends on Friday night or when I was at church on Sunday morning. And what this passage has been speaking to me about is that life with Jesus is not the gospel of sin management. The gospel is really about grace and the freedom, verse 1, the freedom that Christ gives us. So what does Jesus expect of me then? Well, Paul answers that question a few verses later. In verse 6, he says, the only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love. Faith expressing itself through love. Does faith also express itself through obedience? Yes. But I think what Paul's saying here is that that's secondary. The thing that Jesus cares about and Paul cares about more than anything else is the way that we love God and love people. And it's a lot simpler than we've made it. And so this is what is just getting my soul every morning these days. And I'm so glad because it brings freedom to my life.
Thanks for watching the show. As always, I want to invite you to connect with me. You can send me an email to adam@youthspecialties.com or look me up on Facebook or MySpace or Twitter or any of those other social networks that you use. We want to remind you, just like we do every week, that what you do matters. You might not hear it from anybody else, but we want you to hear it from us, from our heart to yours, that your ministry to students matters. It matters to those parents, matters to your students, but most importantly, it matters to the heart of God. Thanks for what you do. We love you, and we'll see you next week.